coach club basketball, and we would practice at Arapahoe. And Scott Hastings is a real good friend of mine, and his daughters both went to Arapahoe. He played in the NBA for about 15 years. So.
Yeah, I remember the name. Well, both my daughters played basketball as well and played on scholarships for the University of Denver.
Really? And what vintage was that? So when did they go?
1970s, and my oldest daughter was an All-American candidate and NCAA Woman of the Year. So, how about that? I had nothing to do with it. It was the older mom.
But when were they? So when did they go to Arapahoe? What time frame? So when did they attend Arapahoe? What years?
I'm trying to think about it. See, 76, that would be about 20, probably early 90s.
Okay.
Late 80s.
Okay. Because it was after that I coached. So, but yeah, I was coaching in the late 90s, so I missed them a little bit.
You probably just missed them.
Well, cool. Well, Mark, why don't you go ahead and open us up? And
the broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey, everybody. It is so great to be with you. Here we have today William Cobb, who, as it turns out, is almost a neighbor of mine here in northern Colorado, and he goes by Bill, so that's what I'm gonna call him, and he's gonna give us a little presentation. But first, he and I are just gonna chat a little bit and let you get to know him. And so I've just been talking a little about we share a lot in common. His kids went to a high school down in the Denver area, which is one that I used to coach some basketball at, and then he then lived in the Castle Rock area, which is near where I also lived, and now he lives near where I lived also. So how long ago did you move to Fort Collins?
Well, we moved out to Colorado in 1985. I left the New York metropolitan area and never looked back. And we've been up in Fort Collins area, northern Colorado, the last 12 years. Okay. And I moved up here when my daughters moved up here and started their families. So, I chased the grandkids up here.
All right. Well, I moved to Colorado from Idaho in 1990. And so we're not too far off time frame, and then was living in Parker and then moved here to northern Colorado in 06. So
yeah, we're a couple of years behind you. 08.
Yeah,
we came up.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about your background, let's say through your youth and up to let's say when you moved to Colorado.
Well, I tell everybody my background is more of an adventure than a career. But like all young men, had trouble figuring out what to do and where to go. And then I got invited by the United States Army to help figure that out. So I'm a Vietnam veteran. Okay. And when I returned to the United States, I understood that you have to give to get. And I put myself back in college and got my degree from the State University of New York at night on my time and my money, which, by the way, makes a big difference. I took my first management job in the finance industry, wound up working for a company called Tuition Plan that lent money to parents and students so they could go to college, and worked my way into commercial finance. But the part of my excitement, I guess, began in the late 1990s when the telecommunications industry began to unbundle, when the Bell system began to break up. And I found myself working for a company in Long Island City that used to make intercoms. Now I'm dating myself, but many, many years ago, there were communication devices on the desks of executives and their secretaries, and used to communicate over those devices. Well, with the changes taking place in the communications industry, telephones now did that. So the company I joined made the conversion to begin producing telephone key equipment rather than intercoms. And that was a big breakthrough at the time for the industry. Well, I wound up being acquired by Continental Telecom out of Atlanta, Georgia. And one thing led to another, I got more responsibility and was asked to do more things. And by the time they sold that company off, I was executive vice president of subsidiary operations. And I don't even remember how that happened because it all happened so quickly. But I was fortunate to be recruited from there out to Colorado to join the newly formed US West, one of the regional bell operating companies. And I followed my old boss out here. And that turned into being one of the smartest things I could have ever done. And I was valued in that company because I understood the competitive markets. They were a dissolving or revolving monopoly. And when I talk with you about the changes in the industry, you'll find that there was room for somebody like me to do well. So I was regional vice president, and I was president of a subsidiary for their federal government, became vice president and general manager of their large business and government services group. And at the end of the day, I was managing over 3,000 people, $1 billion of the company's revenue, and flying around on corporate jets. So how's that for a kid from the Bronx?
Yeah. And then I see in your profile at some point, then you were with CH2M Hill for a while. Is that correct?
Yes, it was. It's interesting when US West sold out the Quest. Of course, Quest put in their own management. I decided to try something different. So that's when I began my entrepreneurial career. And the first couple of ventures there, didn't go as well as I wanted them to. I mean, they did okay. But one of those programs I was involved in, building infrastructure for actually Cisco, I hired CH2M Hill to do my capital program. And when we decided that we weren't going to take that forward, CH2M Hill approached me and asked me, would I consider helping them with their communications division? Because prior to my arrival, their entire program was built upon helping the cable industry build their infrastructure. Well, when I joined them, I said, well, hello, haven't you noticed all these cell towers going up? The industry is going wireless. And, Bechtel, one of their prime competitors, was doing amazing things for AT&T. Others were doing for similar things for others. I said, why don't we put a program together to see if we can participate in that? And we did. We formed a partnership with Ericsson, one of the big electronic communications companies. And we went from 0 to $50 million in 3 years. So it turned out to be quite a success, but quite a rat race, to be very honest with you, because the industry at that time was evolving. The major players were investing billions of dollars, racing one another to be the first one to market. And if you were participating in that rat race at that time, trust me, you were a tired puppy. It was very, very quick, very quick. So that was the last corporate assignment I had. When I stepped off that treadmill, I decided to look at something else to do. And I wound up getting involved with Colorado State University and joined their mentoring, whatever you want to call it, program, and became very active in their entrepreneurial institute. So for years, I have the privilege of working with young students with great ideas, needing help. And up until, I guess, a couple of years ago, they even made me a contract instructor. So I've gone full cycle from having had the experience to helping others gain the experience. And I've enjoyed every minute of it. It's been a heck of a trip, but I'm not done yet.
Yeah, very cool. Again, two other, see if there's another person I got to throw out, see if another small worldish Do you happen to know Steve Sims? Does that name ring a bell?
Steve, what's his last name again?
Sims, S-I-M-M-S.
I don't think I do. Wayne.
So I'm 68. Steve's about 2 or 3 years younger than me, but they live in Castle Rock. He and his wife now, but his kids are grown. But he was one of the early guys that moved from US West over to Comcast as they got started, or actually Quest and literally rose to where he was president of Comcast when he retired. But that's not been that long ago, probably 3 years ago or so he retired.
Wow.
But anyway, that's small worldish. And then did you ever happen to notice when you were working late at CH2M Hill, a whole group of people riding their bikes on Tuesdays or Thursdays from 6 to about 8? That I would have been one of those. My son and I raced bicycles during a long period of time, from about 90 to 2005 until we moved to Northern Colorado. And we used to do throughout the daylight savings times, we'd do a informal race with a whole group of other people between 6 and 8 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The race was actually from 6 to 7, and then we just hang out and ride a little bit more at the Meridian, right underneath your head where CH2M Hill's headquarters was. So
I'll tell you, there's some serious hills down there, so that was some good riding.
More than people think. Yes, there's a couple hills on that circle that are pretty serious. Yeah. So and now you're up north, and you talked about the CSU circumstance. So how did you get involved in I think in this whole area of, let's call it sustainability or green, or all those sorts of words? And because I know you have an interest there, and so tell us a little bit about that.
Well, you probably got a little of this disease too. You're never done learning. And sustainability, in my judgment, goes across a pretty wide swath of things that you can get involved in. So I believe, and I'll probably going a little bit ahead of my presentation here, but I believe that in our modern society, electricity and communications are kind of the cornerstones of our modern civilization. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, obviously, how communications has evolved, but those infrastructure investments enable lots of things to happen. Now, there's a lot of conversation now about how electricity is going to be used to propel transportation vehicles, how they're trying to convert coal-powered plants to more efficient things that are more sustainable. But on the other side of the coin, in communications, our role in society has always been an enabler. We're a technology provider that enables others to do things. So when I share with you how that is evolving, basically anything that can be connected to anything else anywhere is the objective of what the communications industry is trying to meet. And in doing so, that means that we can serve any device, any intelligent device, with a communication link to any other intelligent device it needs to talk to. So when you look at the data that's being compiled by the what they call the Cellular Telephone Industry Association, and you look at the number of industries that connectivity is enabling to do different things, agriculture comes right up there. Okay, it's a big one. There are others as well, but that was the one that connected me to you. I said, I wonder how they're going to use that technology in terms of managing sustainability of food supplies. Well, most of the communications that's going to occur here, and I'll give you the data shortly, is going to be machine to machine, not going to involve people, right? And those machines can talk to each other, and they can manage irrigation systems, they can manage many things. So I just was fascinated with what I knew was doing to impact so many things I didn't know. And as a result of that, it's like a spoke, once you start, you can't stop.
Right.
But I am absolutely fascinated about what's going on in medicine, in how, I have a sister-in-law who has a heart condition. Her defibrillator talks to her doctor all day long. She doesn't even know what happens. We talk about a lot about remote diagnostics.
Right.
We look about, again, climate control in agricultural environments. There are many, many applications for what the industry I was part of is trying to enable to better society as a whole.
Awesome. In just a few minutes, everybody, Bill's going to give us a presentation. So I don't want to, steal a number of things that he's going to talk about there. So I'm going to change my line of questioning just a little bit. By the way, for all of you, please put questions into the question box. We'll probably answer them after Bill's presentation, but go ahead and put those in there. So Bill, tell us about a person in your, let's say, through your high school ages. So when you were living at home with your parents, that was not your parents, that had a huge influence on you, and why? What was somebody that was?
I don't know if that's a tough question, because I wasn't a very good listener in high school. But I can tell you in my professional career, there's been several. One that I always make it a point to give kudos of credit to was a senior officer when I was at US West. A gentleman named Chuck Lillis. He was a former university professor, ran the business department up at Colorado University in Boulder. And he introduced me to a methodology of looking at market and market dynamics called market-based management. And what that has enabled me to do throughout my career is kind of work my way through the maze of the dynamics taking place to apply either product, services, or capabilities to solve particular problems. Because it makes you think beyond the product you offer. It makes you think about how your product and perhaps others, and that's one thing your group is doing extremely well, can come up with something that's even better than what you individually can provide. You asked me about CH2M Hill. We would have never been successful in our endeavor there had we not partnered with Ericsson, a communications company provider. So we were a civil engineering firm. We knew how to build a site to put a cell phone on. We could put up the towers and the antennas. We knew nothing about the electronics, right? Somebody had to put that in there. So we found a way to package all of that so that the telephone companies, the operators that were trying to build these things, instead of having to deal with 3, 4, or 5 different vendors, dealt with one, right? That was CH2M Hill. We took care of everything else. Anyway, I'm diverging a little bit from what you were trying to get to, but I don't know. I'm constantly learning, Wayne. It's the best way I can answer that.
So on the learning scale, tell us about something you've read recently that really touched you, whether it's a book or whether it's something that, again, that our audience might want to read themselves. So
that's a good question. I read a lot of articles, more so than publications. When I read books, I like to be entertained. I don't want to think too hard. But something I've recently read, I really don't want to answer that off the cuff. I want to think about that a little bit.
All right, well, think about that. Maybe later we can have another time. We can get to that one. So here's another one that's a little bit the same light, but what's a tool that you've used recently? Whether it's a physical tool, whether it's an online tool, whether you name it, that again, that you're really impressed with, and maybe you'd recommend that others might use.
Well, I'm analytical, and it's so interesting. I just shared this with a bunch of our legislators, but I'm a big believer in decision matrix. And a decision matrix is one that forces you to use the discipline of understanding what you're trying to accomplish, what it's going to cost to do it, and what's the benefit you hope to derive from doing that. And in the corporate world, as you know, we try not to make capital investments that not provide some kind of benefit to the shareholder. Well, unfortunately, in government today, that kind of decision-making tool is not necessarily popular. So if we're going to enable our legislators to agree on anything, they're going to have to start by agreeing on the tools that they're going to use to begin to agree, rather than just start with an arbitrary position that is not necessarily supported by the facts and data necessary to make the decision. So I'm a big believer in decision matrices.
It's a great tool.
And that's the one that I've used my whole career, and candidly, it has served me well.
Awesome. Well, it's about the right time to kind of turn this over to you and let you do your presentation. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of pause my webcam so I'm not distracting while you're talking. And when you're finished, we'll go ahead and get the questions from the audience. We already have several, and we'll finish up with the Q&A session. And I'm excited to hear about what you've got to tell us. So I'm going to go ahead and pause my webcam, and you go ahead and start with your presentation.
Well, I've got my screen up. Can you folks see it?
Yeah, no, let me give you the screen here once. And here you go.
All right, can you see me now?
Yes, all done.
Okay.
Yeah, we had it there, Bill. It was on. We've lost it now. Did we just lose Bill entirely?
Yeah, I think we just lost. I think he will be coming back once.
Yeah, he'll come back on. We were getting his screen just fine, so that'll work. Come back. I'll turn my webcam on back for a second so that I'm not looking at nothing. You notice that I'm facing a different direction here today. So this is one of my colleagues that I share the office space with that's back behind. And I like the fact she's got a nice little globe there. There's a couple flowers behind me. So it's a good look. Yeah, it's made out of like a ball of some kind of a plastic ball. So it's not exactly round. Well, Bill will be back on here, I'm sure. He must have clicked something he didn't intend to click.
I think so. I'm emailing him back so he can jump on.
By the way, I'm going to grab something real quick. I want to show you this. It's what my neighbor here is using for. She does webinars and teaches kids, and it's a really cool little device. So I'm going to just take my headset off for a second. I will be right back. Yeah. So that's a light on the outside, and then you put your cell phone, mount it, and then it's on a tripod, as you can see. and she can get this to vary. So the light, she can vary where it's located here. But really inexpensive. And this is a little device that you can use to remotely record or turn the light up to a higher or lower level. Anyway, I'm going to take this back to her desk so I don't steal it from her. Wow, it's taking them a little while to get back on here.
I'm just afraid he doesn't even know about it. He must be going on with his presentation.
Yeah, you're gonna somehow you're gonna need to reach him. I mean, I don't.
Yeah, I emailed him. I'm looking for a number for him. Let's see.
Yeah, you're probably right. He's probably going ahead, but apologize, everybody. I can't remember. We have firsts all the time. We're coming up on our 5-year anniversary in a month, and this has never happened before, where somebody literally immediately and they start their presentation and they're gone. I don't know what he did, because his first slide was up there on the screen and then he was gone. So I saw a really very cool statistic about Larimer County, which is where both Bill and I live, and northern Colorado, right on the border with Wyoming. It's not a small county. I think we might have 300,000 probably population-wise in the county. And there has not been a single COVID-related death in April, which is pretty cool. Well, as we're waiting for Bill to get back here, just real quickly, we've got some incredible people coming up in the next several weeks doing webinars, but I'll be doing my EPN webinar tomorrow, EPN being the Environmental Professionals Network, which is now a subsidiary of EAT. And we're starting to do some projects where, again, we're following the economic model of helping people to make some money, making the planet better. So the whole idea of EPN is to have people all over the world become part of teams that will pursue projects, both private and public, that they can participate in either on small teams, maybe even just themselves, their business, or larger teams, and compete with very large companies like CH2M Hill, which is the one that we were talking about a little bit earlier with Bill. Arif, have you reached him at all? This is going to be a little embarrassing here.
No, I know that. I have emailed him twice. I'm trying to find his number, but I cannot see it. Even on his LinkedIn profile now. So.
Have you just communicated with him by email before?
Yeah, just by email. It's all good. The test session, it was all good. So, just what happened here.
I have nothing prepared, folks. Mark, why don't you pull up? Once you take the screen, I'm going to tell you a couple places to go to. We'll try to salvage a little bit out of this at least. No, I'm going to tell you to go to some places. So as soon as your screen's up, go ahead and put up either the EAT website or the EPN. I'm going to give you a couple sites to go to. Yeah, just start right there. So put in in the Google search, put in, you know what? Give me the screen. Be a lot easier for me to do it. That way, I can just type it. Again, I apologize, everybody. Certainly not planned. Again, never had this happen before. I think Bill's out there talking to nobody. He probably doesn't have a clue. So my screen should be up. Are you guys seeing it at all? Should be seeing go to webinar. All right, I'm going to add and do a search here. Which, by the way, just a little suggestion. I have stopped using Google as a search engine because I'm worried about basically privacy. And I've gone to this one, DuckDuckGo, which just look that up. It is supposedly a lot less able to be hacked. By the way, Reeb, if he comes back on, let me know because I've gotten rid of my screen. You do the same, Mark.
Sure.
So I'm just going to do a search here real quick to show you something, this Meridian Office Plaza that we were talking about where CH2M Hill is. So that's, I believe, CH2M Hill's headquarters. I'm going to look at some images here. Yeah, look at, there's CH2M Hill bikes. So you must be able to take a bike. So the office center has a loop that goes around it. It's 2.1 miles. And this is probably the loop road here. And as Bill mentioned, there are several hills on it that are fairly steep. So just fun place to have spent about 15 years with my son and with a whole bunch of others as we did a little bit of bike riding and racing around this area. I'm going to pull up another site that I had on my screen here, but this is something, a site that I would recommend for everyone to look up, which is called America's Frontline Doctors. And so AFLDS is the site name. And this is a group that's going to, does videos, does media, but it's a group of over 1,000 doctors here in the US and around the world that are essentially keeping privacy in the medical field. And they're really very cool group. And you can get prescriptions filled from them. There's doctors that you can work with them, and it's a very interesting circumstance. Any sign of Bill coming back? So Alicia, you asked a question. Again, I don't have the answer because it's again one just asked several actually just for Bill. So I will make sure we get it to him if he doesn't come back on here. I'm going to close my screen. Really have anything else to show you right now. We'll give him about 2 or 3, 5 more minutes at the most, and then we're probably going to call it for the day. Apologize. We'll get him back another time, I'm sure, but not a heck of a lot we can do about it right now. If you've got other questions for Mark or I or Reeb about each, and if you've got people that you could recommend that we could put on, we'd love to have them. So maybe we'll just have a little bit of a dialogue here. I'll pull up my question box. So Alicia did put up something about by the way, real quick about decision cost benefit matrices and decision matrices. That is not the same EPN, by the way. And notice their URL is just epn.osu. That's a club at Ohio State University, Alicia. Has nothing to do with what we're doing. It's just we actually had the name way before they started, but we didn't do anything to sort of block them at all because, and there's another, and the other one is environmentalprofessionalsnetwork.com. That is, so we have both those websites. Why don't you pull up, once you take the screen back, Mark, and pull up Environmental Professionals Network site, because we haven't put that one on the screen for a while. Go ahead and take the screen back. Yeah, but pull up the Environmental Professionals Network site. So this site's been around since 2013, and it's mainly an information site and has 380 blog articles written on it. And many of them are very good and have got some great information on them. We knew that at some point that we'd probably be doing what we've now done with EPN from a business building perspective, but we weren't doing it yet in 2013 and 14. So we started the site and then started to share information. So go into the blog, Mark, and just show people a few of the blog articles. So this is our most recent one on vertical farms, vertical farming. Very hot topic right now. Brand new facility opening up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, a company called Calerna that we're going to actually have an interview at some point with one of their principals. Here's an interesting one, not that long. It's how to become a tree surgeon. So we try to show people ways in which they can make some money making the planet better. So the whole idea of ecology. Well, Arib, any luck? We're not finding him at all.
I have tried emails and there is no number for him. I have tried every place.
He's doing just what you said. He's just out there talking. He thinks he's doing his presentation. Well, you guys stay. Why don't you guys make sure to keeping in touch with him until at least 4. But I think we'll go ahead and just call this.
Yeah, I think the best way is to move this to Friday. So I will, once this thing is done, and he connects with me.
I can't do it on Friday, Arib. You've already seen that. I'm not going to be able to do it Friday. But we'll come up with another day. Friday, I'm in Nebraska at a dog competition all day. I can do phone calls, but I can't be tied up for an hour-long webinar.
Then next week, sure, okay. I think I will find a date and we can move this thing.
He's retired, so I'm sure his schedule's fairly open. So I would guess we could find a way.
New date for this, yeah. I think this is a technical issue. Somehow it was all going okay, but I think he just clicked something and now he's just talking to his screen.
Yeah.
And what is there?
I'm sure he doesn't realize it. Although it's interesting, his webcam would have gone away. So he would think that he would have realized that, but maybe he didn't want to have the webcam on while he was talking anyway.
know when
All
your
right.
screen
Well, hey,
sharing
everybody,
is.
sorry about that. Nothing, never happened before in
First
1,000
time.
plus different kinds of, so you never can say never that there's not going to be a first. So
Yeah.
let me just see real quick before we stop if there's any other questions that I could answer. Nope, doesn't look like it. All right. Well, everybody have awesome days. Rest of your day, wherever you're at in the world, and we'll get back together. If you want to hear more about EPN, and actually we're specifically talking about projects and how you can get involved with projects and be making some money. And so that'll be tomorrow. And at about 5 o'clock, I believe, or 5:30. I'm not sure. I always forget exactly the time for that. Got it on calendar, so I have to remember it otherwise. All right. Hey, everybody. Good day. Take us out, Mark.
Take care, guys.